finally circling back around to you. A decade ago, this man came forward to do what his peers wouldn't, to say what his peers couldn't, to talk about our people. And when I say our, I'm talking about black and brown community. Former councilmember, I call you Danny Drum, but I think it's Daniel Drum, right? Danny Drum. Former councilmember Daniel Drum.
When I say in, you say solitary in.
Solitary in. Solitary.
When I say in, you say solitary in.
Solitary in. Solitary.
I just want to give you your flowers because you have stood with us, you fought with us, you kept your word. Same thing on the family public advocate. You promised something and you kept your word. And even though you couldn't completely fulfill it, they only gave us 16, 21-year-olds in 2015. You still fought and fought. And to put that bill back 5 years later, 2020 was 5 years later, to bring it back, that shows your dedication. Even though you left council with them not pushing it through, you still are here with the people. That is part of his character. That is part of his dedication. That is a man. You are nothing if you can't stand on your word. Councilmember Danny Drum.
Wow, I hope I can live up to all your really kind words, Dr. B. You have also been an undying supporter of closing ending solitary, of all the criminal justice reforms that we as a group here have stood for many years. So thank you for your advocacy as well. And you are very right to say that this bill, this legislation is meant to improve conditions for everybody, whether you are incarcerated on Rikers Island or whether you work on Rikers Island, because we all know that solitary confinement makes people's emotional stability worse when you have to spend 23, and by the way, it's really almost 24, because oftentimes the hour they offer people out of cell time is 1 hour at 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning. And who's going to get up at that time to go out into the cold or to do whatever it is? Nobody's going to do it. So they oftentimes even miss their 1 hour out of cell time. So this is about the torture that has occurred on Rikers Island for decades and decades. It is torture. It is said to be torture, but the United Nations has declared solitary confinement to be torture. You know, I also want to thank Carlina Rivera, who is here, for having the guts to stick by and be at and attend hearings that we had, and also to challenge the powers that be to make sure that this legislation gets passed in the City Council. I want to thank Public Advocate Jumaane Williams for also standing up. Jumaane and I and others started the Progressive Caucus, and this was one of the goals of the Progressive Caucus many years ago. Jumaane worked hard on stop and frisk, got that law passed, although we see that rising now too. We see those stops rising now too. Okay, but we have worked so hard on these issues together. Councilmember Tiffany Caban, who really has championed this issue as well. Councilmember Marte, who was here, thank you very much. And I saw Councilmember Chiose, who was here. I think he might have had some lead. Thank you to Jail Action Coalition, to everybody also. And I could go on and on, but I just want to say this as well. For 14 years ago, I got elected to the City Council. And I asked David Rothenberg, who was the founder of the Fortune Society, what could be done about criminal justice? What's the most important thing? And he said, if you really want to reform the criminal justice system, get rid of solitary confinement. And Dr. D is right. There used to be something called time owed. Remember time owed, okay? When you had done your time, but you left, you came back, you had time left, you had to go back into solitary confinement. We got rid of that. We got rid of solitary confinement for the young people. But now it is time to pass this legislation so that we are ensuring people that this torture will never again occur on Rikers Island or any criminal justice facility in the city of New York. Thank you very much.
And now I want to put her on the spot. Who do you call when you have issues on Rikers Island? The councilmember in charge of it. Come on, Councilmember Tiffany Caban. And I'll be very quick. I want to give you your what I was doing. Because when she first ran for city council, I was leery of her. And you know, for rightfully so. But but what I will say is, you have stuck to your guns and you have fought for the people. And even though we might not always agree on how things are done, you are dedicated, and we thank you.
So it's almost deja vu, I think, for all of us, because we have been out here, I can't even count the number of times. And usually, my name is Tiffany Kavan, by the way. Usually, I walk up into this space, probably like a lot of y'all, being like, man, what am I gonna say this time that I didn't say last time? And I walked up into this space and I felt a little bit of a relief. It'll be momentary because we have more fights to have. But I knew that I wasn't going to step up here with the usual warranted righteous rage. But that I wanted to step up here and release that for a moment and just share gratitude. Gratitude. Thank you to each and every one of you for showing up each and every day, for your advocacy, for reliving and putting your trauma on the line over and over again, for other people, for people you don't know, for people you know, people you don't know. I spent almost a decade as a public defender, and while I will never know the experience of having a direct loved one die in solitary, I know what it is to experience the transformation of individuals as they are incarcerated in solitary. I know what it means to be in relationship with folks who have survived solitary, and that, yes, the ultimate harm is death, but you cannot quantify the amount of trauma and the impact of having to live through solitary. And we all have those names and faces, and I think it is something that I have been reading lately is like practices of grief, because what we do here together is we grieve. We grieve loved ones, we grieve neighbors, we grieve New Yorkers. But grief is a practice of gratitude. Grief doesn't exist without love. You have to love to be able to grieve. And that is what gives me hope when we have these fights, that y'all love so hard that it doesn't matter that it took a decade, that we are here today and we're gonna get it done. And so my commitment to you is to make sure that we keep our colleagues right, and if the mayor dares to veto this legislation, that we override it with love and solidarity. And we are not afraid. And the last thing that I wanna end on, again, because you're not coming with the righteous rage today, at least not for me, is that I know, at least in my work, and I see some of my former colleagues here, some of the faces of the people we represent never leave your memory. And when solitary is at the forefront, I've had many, many clients who have survived solitary, but I think of one who I want to honor, a 17-year-old boy, Latino, queer, beautiful, talented dancer. Before being thrown on Rikers Island, he had gotten accepted to like an Alvin Ailey sort of student scholarship there. Like, he was that talented. Had lost his parents to substance use disorder. Had struggled with substance use himself at 17. And that's how he found himself on Rikers. He was thrown into solitary. He was sexually assaulted in solitary. He was never the same young, bright boy. We had to watch that transformation. His grandparents had to watch that transformation. And so I am hoping that with tomorrow's vote, we never have to watch that kind of transformation again, and know that it is step one. We are going to ban solitary confinement tomorrow, and then we're going to make sure that we close Rikers Island for good.
Yeah!
That's right. So thank you all so much. I love and appreciate you, Councilmember Griffin. Thank you for all that you have done. Peace and solidarity.
Hey!